Good afternoon, television fans. Big Al here on this Monday, July 21st, 2025, and welcome to episode 15 of TV Station History. And today we're starting a new market as we're taking a look at the television station histories of the major television stations in the Los Angeles TV market. And we're going to start off with KCBS-TV, which is the West Coast flagship of CBS. So with that said, like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. Ring the bell and get notified every time I go live. And here we go with the history of KCBS-TV. KCBS-TV Channel 2, branded as CBS Los Angeles, is a television station in Los Angeles, California, serving as the West Coast flagship station of the CBS Television Network. It is owned and operated by the network's CBS News and Stations division, alongside independent television station KCAL-TV Channel 9. The two outlets share studios at the Radford Studio Center on Radford Avenue in the Studio City section of Los Angeles, and Channel 2's transmitter is located on the western side of Mount Wilson near Occidental Park. Alright, here are the specs on KCBS-TV Los Angeles. The station broadcasts on Virtual Channel 2 and RF Digital Channel 31. On-air brand is CBS Los Angeles. News brand is KCAL News on CBS Los Angeles. We'll talk about the sub-channels at the end of the rundown. KCBS-TV is owned by CBS News and Stations, and its license is held by CBS Broadcasting Incorporated. Its sister station is KCAL-TV Channel 9. KCBS-TV was founded in June 1931 and officially signed on May 6, 1948. Originally as experimental station WX6AO from 1931 to 1948. Then as a licensed television station, they were known as KM2XBD or KTSL from 1948 to 1950. It then just as KTSL for a short period in 1950 and 1951, and then as KNXT from 1951 until 1984, when they officially became KCBS-TV. The station broadcast originally on VHF Analog Channel 1 from 1938 to 1946, and then would move its VHF signal to Channel 2 from 1946 until the digital transition of 2009. Their digital signal aired on UHF Channel 60 from 1998 to 2009 and Channel 43 from 2009 to 2019 until landing their digital signal on RF Channel 31. Upon sign-on, KCBS-TV was affiliated with the Dumont Television Network from 1948 to 1951. Call sign meaning is the Columbia Broadcasting System, the former legal name of CBS. KCBS-TV is licensed by the Federal Communications Commission. They broadcast at an effective radiated power of 485 kilowatts from their transmitter tower located 3,593 feet above average terrain on Mount Wilson. They also have a list of translators. We'll go through those at the end as well. Their website is www.cbsnews.com/Los Angeles. Aside from being affiliated with CBS News since 2017, KCBS-TV has had no connection to KCBS Radio in San Francisco, which broadcasts on 740 kilohertz in the Bay Area. The 2017 sale to Entercom, which is now Odyssey, of CBS Radio and KCBS FM 93.1 in Los Angeles ended almost 7 decades of co-ownership with the 3 stations under CBS. Down to the history starting in the early years from 1931 to 1948. KCBS-TV is the oldest continuously operating television station in the western United States. It was signed on by Don Lee Broadcasting, which owned a chain of radio stations on the Pacific Coast and was first licensed by the Federal Radio Commission, or the FRC, forerunner of today's Federal Communications Commission, as experimental television station W6XAO in June 1931. The station went on the air on December 23, 1931, and by March 1933 was broadcasting programming 1 hour each day on Mondays through Saturdays. The station used a mechanical camera, which broadcast only film footage in an 80-line image, but used all electronic receivers as early as 1932. It went off the air in 1935 and then reappeared using an improved mechanical camera, producing a 300-line image in June of 1936. By August 1937, W6XAO had programming 6 days a week, with live programming starting in April of 1938. By 1939, the station used a fully electronic system, and the image quality was improved to 441 lines. Get myself settled here. At the time, an optimistic estimate of the station's viewership was 1,500 people. Many of the receiver sets were built by television hobbyists, though commercially made sets were available in Los Angeles. The station's 6-day weekly schedule consisted of live talent on 4 nights and films on 2 nights. By 1942, there was an estimated 400 to 500 television sets in the Los Angeles area, with Don Lee Broadcasting placing television receivers at the following public places: the Wilshire Brown Derby, Kiefer's Pine Knot Drive-In, Vine Street Brown Derby, Griffith Planetarium, the Miramar Hotel in Santa Monica, the Hollywood Roosevelt Hotel, and the Townhouse on Wilshire Boulevard. During World War II, programming was reduced to 3 hours every other Monday. The station's frequency was switched from Channel 1 to Channel 2 in March 1946, when the FCC decided to reserve Channel 1 for low-power community television stations before eliminating it completely. The station was granted a commercial license, the second in California, behind KTLA Channel 5, and this license was named KM2XBD, but calling it KTSL. And that was on May 6th of 1948, and officially changed the call sign full-time to KTSL on October 9th, 1950, and was named for Thomas S. Lee, the son of Don Lee. The station became affiliated with the Dumont Television Network later that year. KTSL also launched Peter Potter's Jukebox series that year, a musical quiz series that began to broadcast nationally during the 53-54 season on ABC. CBS acquisition, 1949 to 1984. Starting in 1949, CBS had been affiliated with KTTV Channel 11, now a Fox-owned and operated station, a station in which the network held a 49% minority ownership stake. Donnelly's broadcasting interests were placed for sale in 1950 following the death of Thomas S. Lee. General Tire and Rubber agreed to purchase all of Donnelly's stations, the centerpiece being KHJ Radio, but chose to spin off KTSL to CBS. Subsequently, CBS sold its share in KTTV to the station's majority partner, the Los Angeles Times, and all CBS programming moved to KTSL on January 1st, 1951. On October 28, 1951, KTSL would change its call sign to KNXT, presumably meaning KNX Television, to coincide with CBS's Los Angeles radio outlet KNX 1070 AM. The station also moved its transmitter from Mount Lee, where it had been based since its experimental days, to Mount Wilson. As KCBS-TV, 1984 to the present. Sorry about that. On October 2nd, 1984, at noon, KNXT changed its call letters to the present KCBS-TV. The former KNXT call letters were later used by an unrelated television station in Fresno from 1986 to 2021, which is known today as KIFR. In 1997, it adopted the CBS2 moniker for its on-air image, following the lead of sister stations WBBM-TV in Chicago and WCBS-TV in New York. For a time, during the 80s and 90s, KNXT/KCBS-TV had several locally produced programs such as Two on the Town, a local show similar to Evening Magazine, and KABC-TV's Eye on LA, and Kid Quiz, a Saturday morning children's game show hosted by longtime weathercaster Maglovio Perez. For a time in the mid-2000s, sister station KCLA-TV had broadcast a show called 9 on the Town. In 2002, KCBS-TV briefly became a sister station to KCAL 9 after the latter was purchased by Viacom from Young Broadcasting. On April 21st, 2007, KCBS and KCAL moved from the historic CBS Columbia Square in Hollywood to an all-digital facility at the CBS Studio Center in Studio City. With the move, KTLA became the only broadcast station, either in radio or television, in Los Angeles to be based in Hollywood. KCBS-TV ended regular programming on its analog signal over VHF Channel 2 and switched to analog nightlight service at 1:10 p.m. on June 12, 2009. As part of the federally mandated transition from analog to digital television. The nightlight service continued to run on the station until July 12, 2009. The station moved its digital signal from its pre-transition UHF Channel 60, which was among the high-band UHF channels from 52 to 69, that were being removed from broadcasting as a result of the transition, and moved its digital signal to UHF Channel 43 using Virtual Channel 2. On October 21st, 2014, CBS and Weigel Broadcasting announced the launch of a new digital sub-channel service called Decades, scheduled to launch on all CBS-owned stations in the second quarter of 2015, including KCBS-TV on Channel 2.2. On September 3rd of 2018, Decades was replaced on Channel 2.2 by Start TV, with Decades moving to Weigel's KAZA-TV. On December 4th, 2019, CBS Corporation and Viacom remerged into Viacom CBS, known today as Paramount Global. All right, let's talk about programming, starting with sports programming. In 1956, CBS began broadcasting NFL games, and with it, the Los Angeles Rams had their games aired on Channel 2. This alliance would continue through the 1993 season when Fox took over the rights to broadcast NFC games, which led to KTTV Channel 11 being the new home station for one season in 1994 before the team moved to St. Louis. With the Rams' return to Los Angeles in 2016, Channel 2 will air games in which the Rams play host to an AFC opponent, and any cross-flex games aired by CBS. The station previously aired Rams preseason games from 2016 to 2019, and intermittently in past years during the team's first day in Greater Los Angeles. From 1982 to 1993, Channel 2 also aired all home interconference games of the then Los Angeles Raiders during their time in LA, including their win in Super Bowl 18. The station also gave coverage to Super Bowl 14, which the Rams were runners-up, and in Super Bowl 21, both of which were hosted at the Rose Bowl in nearby Pasadena. As the first Super Bowl was held at the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum, presently the home of USC Trojans football, and was televised nationally on both CBS and NBC. CBS was the exclusive home of the pre-merger NFL at the time, and NBC was the home network of the American Football League. The game was blacked out locally on KNXT and on KNBC Channel 4 due to home game blackout policies that both leagues had at the time and carried over into the league's merger in 1970, which did not allow home games to be shown locally regardless of whether the game was sold out, and this policy also extended to the host city of the Super Bowl game starting in the 1973 season. The blackout rules were relaxed. Home games were allowed to be televised in the local market so long as the game sold out 72 hours in advance. Those blackout rules were lifted completely in 2015. In 2017, the station became the unofficial home of the NFL's Los Angeles Chargers franchise, which announced on January 12, 2017, that it has exercised an option to leave its longtime home of San Diego and join the Rams in Los Angeles. The newly relocated and rechristened Los Angeles Chargers are a part of the AFC, and therefore most of their games, the vast majority of road games, home games against AFC opponents, and select games cross-flex from Fox, are carried by CBS. Because Los Angeles was previously a secondary market of the Chargers during their time in San Diego, the station was already under requirement to carry the team's road games. KCBS was scheduled to resume carriage of Chargers preseason games starting with the 2020 season. However, with the COVID-19 pandemic affecting the United States, preseason games across the NFL were canceled, and not rescheduled. KCBS ended up broadcasting the Chargers preseason games in 2021. The station previously televised Chargers preseason games from 2002 to 2015. Sports director Jim Hill, a former Chargers player, was a sportscaster for CBS Sports during his first stint at Channel 2 from 1976 to 1987. Hill then left to become the sports director at rival KCBS-TV Channel 7, but returned to Channel 2 in 1992 and has remained sports director at the station since. Other ex-athletes who are sportscasters for KCBS and KCAL-TV are Eric Dickerson, Jim Everett, James Worthy, and Eric Carrolls. From 1973 to 1990, the station aired Los Angeles Lakers games via the NBA on CBS, which included 8 NBA Finals appearances by the Lakers during their Showtime era, where they came out victorious 5 times. Through CBS's contract with Major League Baseball, select Dodgers and Angels games aired on Channel 2 from 1990 to 1993. And beginning in 2024, KCBS-TV will air select USC Trojans and UCLA Bruins football games as part of the Big Ten on CBS. News operation. KCBS-TV presently broadcasts 23 hours and 10 minutes of locally produced newscasts each week, with 3 hours 35 minutes on weekdays and Saturdays, and 3 hours on Sunday. News Department history. In 1961, KNXT created one of the nation's first news hours. It began with 45 minutes of local news, The Big News, which featured Jerry Dunphy, along with legendary weatherman Bill Keane and sportscaster Gil Stratton. It aired on Channel 2 weeknights from 6:30 to 7:15 p.m., leading into the then 15-minute-long CBS Evening News, which completed the news hour. Also featured were special assignment reporter Maury Green and human predicament essayist Ralph Story. The team and format helped make KNXT the top-rated news station in LA. At times, a quarter of Los Angeles television sets were tuned to the Big News and its late evening companion, the 11 o'clock report, the highest ratings ever for a television newscast in the LA area. The station eventually added reporters such as Howard Gingold and Sal Halpert, among others, and added news bureaus in Sacramento, San Francisco, and Orange County, each with full-time correspondents and camera crews. The Big News expanded to a full hour in September 1963, leading into the new half-hour-long CBS Evening News. Color broadcasts of the Big News and the 11 o'clock report began in August 1966. Eventually, KNXT expanded to 2.5 hours of local news programming, as well as a late-night newscast. KNBC Channel 4 went head-to-head with KNXT with viewers during the 1960s. However, in the mid-70s, rival KABC-TV Channel 7 began gaining ground in the local news ratings at KNXT's expense. In 1975, KNXT fired Dunphy, who was quickly hired by Channel 7, and replaced with Patrick Emery, who had anchored at the then CBS-owned and operated station KMOX-TV, which is now KMOV in St. Louis. KNXT then adapted a format similar to Channel 7's Eyewitness News, with its happy talk, in quotation marks, between anchors. However, the change went nowhere, just as most of its fellow CBS-owned stations were dominating their series ratings. Channel 2 in Los Angeles rapidly fell into last place. For most of the period between 1975 and 2006, Channel 2 was not a major competitor in the Los Angeles television ratings among the area's local TV newscasts. During the period, Channel 2 had frequently changed newscast titles from the Big News or the 11 o'clock report to Channel 2 News in 1973. Then to Newsroom in 1976, and back to Channel 2 News in 1978, and formats to styles that often became unsuccessful and even controversial. In September 1986, Channel 2 implemented a news wheel format for its 4 to 6:30 p.m. news block, with each hour of news beginning with a 20-minute newscast, followed by 2 20-minute programs devoted to certain topics and themes. For example, there was entertainment and lifestyle news early and harder news stories later in the program, concluding with a half-hour-long local news report. This format was heavily panned by critics and audiences alike, and was dropped after only a month in favor of standard newscasts. As part of the aforementioned changes from 1986 to 1987, KCBS produced a 7 p.m. newscast airing CBS Evening News immediately beforehand at 6:30. KCBS was also the last station in Los Angeles to offer a local early evening newscast at 6:30, when its 6 p.m. newscast ran for an hour during that time period. CW affiliate KTLA Channel 5 launched the newscast in that time slot in January 2009. All hail King Caesar! What's going on, my brother? KCBS produced late afternoon newscasts at 4 p.m. at various points in time, and it was the first in the Southland region with a 4:30 p.m. newscast, which would later expand to an hour. The late 80s and early 90s saw KCBS, or brought to KCBS, the Action News format, in which the station's newscasts adapted a tabloid-style format. The format grated on the news staff, which circulated a memo that resulted in the firing of news director John Lippman in 1993. Lippman was criticized and reportedly had many confrontations with the news staff, notably a shoving match between him and anchor Michael Tuck. The station's ratings would quickly decline. CBS management, highly embarrassed at KCBS-TV's subpar performance, responded by bringing in Bill Applegate as general manager. Applegate had previously served as GM of Chicago's sister station WBBM-TV and was employed at the station as a reporter in the early 70s. While Applegate had been criticized for making WBBM-TV's newscasts flashier than they had been previously, he would set about toning down the format of KCBS's newscasts. One of his strategies involved bringing in popular anchors and reporters from other LA TV stations, including Jerry Dunphy, who returned to Channel 2 a couple decades later after his early firing from the station. Dunphy went on to anchor at Channel 7 and at Channel 9, both of which achieved high ratings for the newscast during each of his stints. Also joining Dunphy were colleagues Ann Martin, Dr. George Fishback, Paul Dandridge, and Mark Coogan from Channel 7, and Larry Carroll, who worked with Dunphy at KABC and KCAL, plus 2 KNBC personalities, Linda Alvarez and consumer reporter David Horowitz, also joined the team. The station's ratings improved, but Applegate eventually became a casualty of CBS's merger with the Westinghouse Electric Company in 1996. Applegate had bickered with Westinghouse over the station's syndicated programming not long after he had arrived. Westinghouse executives never forgot this, and Applegate was one of the first executives to be let go. Channel 2's momentum ground to a halt, and it soon dropped back into last place. The Action News branding was dropped in late 1996, and the station's newscasts were briefly reverted back to Channel 2 News, and then was later renamed to CBS 2 News in the spring of 1997. Dunphy, who was dismissed from KCBS in March 1996 because of the aforementioned CBS merger with Westinghouse, returned to KCAL 9 in November of 1997. KCBS dropped its 4 p.m. newscast in 1998 in favor of the short-lived syndicated talk program The Howie Mandel Show, which was canceled after its first season. Then in 1999, the Woman-to-Woman Public Affairs Show, featuring Martin, Catherine Anaya, Pamela Wright, and former Channel 4 newscaster Kelly Lang. What's poppin', Joey? How you doing, bro? After Viacom's purchase of KCAL-TV, KCBS reintroduced the 4 p.m. news, but now it was airing exclusively on KCAL-9. KCBS-TV began another attempt to get out of the ratings basement at the start of the 21st century. Kent Schoeneck, former anchor at Channel 4's Today in LA, joined KCBS to become its morning co-anchor in 2000. The station then hired longtime Channel 7 anchor Harold Green in 2001 as anchor of its 5 and 11 p.m. newscasts. The following year, Green was joined by his former partner at KABC, Laura Diaz. In 2004, Paul Majors, longtime anchor at KARE in Minneapolis, St. Paul, replaces Green on the 5 and 11 p.m. news, bumping Green to the 4 and 6 p.m. news. The 4 p.m. newscast moved to Channel 9 with the arrival of Dr. Phil on KCBS in September 2004. At the beginning of 2005, longtime Channel 7 weatherman Johnny Mountain moved to Channel 2, surprising many. At first, it seemed that none of these changes brought KCBS any closer to becoming a factor in the Los Angeles news ratings. However, in April 2006, Channel 2 would grab the number 2 spot at 5 p.m. from KABC due to a strong lead-in from Dr. Phil. KCBS would shoot past both Channel 7 and Channel 4 to take first place at 11 p.m. for the first time in 30 years. The 2007 move to Studio City marked many changes at both KCBS and KCAL-TV, with several news personalities having departed, including David Jackson, who returned to the duopoly after anchoring at Channel 9 in the early 90s, Carrie Kilbride, reporter Jay Jackson, Paul Dandridge, Delva Henry, Linda Alvarez, sports anchor Alan Massengale, and Dave Clark, who left for KTVU up in the San Francisco Bay Area. Both stations also began broadcasting all their local newscasts, sports shows, and public affairs programming in high definition, becoming the third and fourth stations in Los Angeles to do so, following Channel 7 in February 2006 and KTLA Channel 5 in January 2007. In addition, Channels 2 and 9 now operate in a completely tapeless newsroom. This newsroom is named in honor of the late former anchor of both stations, Jerry Dunphy. The Dunphy newsroom is also shared with CBS News, operating as its Los Angeles/West Coast bureau. On April 1st, 2008, the CBS Television Stations division enacted some of the biggest budget cuts in television history, as well as staff layoffs across all of its stations. As a result of the cuts, roughly 10 to 15 staffers were released from KCBS and KCAL-TV. The 6 p.m. anchors Harold Green and Ann Martin, who both also anchored Channel 9's 4 p.m. news, chose to retire from television news. Green and Martin were slated to have their contracts expire in June of that year, and both considered for layoffs. Additionally, longtime KCBS reporter Jennifer Sabin and reporters Greg Phillips and Jennifer Davis were let go by the station. News Central era. There we go. On September 19, 2009, KCBS and KCAL adopted the uniform News Central brand, unrelated to the news organization of the same name formerly operated by Sinclair Broadcast Group. The newscasts were refocused to cover more community news, including stories from outlying communities, local news headlines from the Los Angeles newspaper group, and other media news group newspapers were shown on a news ticker. Street team submissions of videos and photos from viewers were featured. Reporters ended stories with News Central rather than the individual station brands. And microphone flags and news vehicles were branded to show both stations' logos at once. The KCBS and KCAL logos were previously displayed on alternating slides. The newscast claimed that it produced more local news than any other television station in the United States, with reporters in Ventura County, the Inland Empire, and Orange County, and the only Los Angeles station with 2 helicopters subcontracted to Angel City Air, owned by reporter Larry Welk. Ed Asner introduced the new newscast. CBS denied that the move was made in response to other stations pooling news gathering resources. Ratings under the new format during the November 2009 sweeps showed KCBS lagging behind both KABC-TV and KNBC in crucial time slots. On December 10, 2009, Patrick McClanahan resigned after 1 year as president of KCBS and KCAL and was replaced by Steve Malden, who had overseen the CBS-owned and operated duopoly in Dallas-Fort Worth. That week, the News Central brand was rescinded, restoring the CBS 2 News and KCAL 9 News identities. The News Central graphics, microphone flags, and logos were retained in the interim, though on-air talent no longer referred to the News Central brand. 2010 to 2022. By spring 2010, the new management had made significant changes to Channel 2's news operation. Veteran forecaster Johnny Mountain retired and was replaced by sister KCAL's Jackie Johnson. Joining anchor Paul Majors on the lead newscast were KCAL veteran Pat Harvey. The morning broadcast was also revamped, and the newly renamed CBS 2 News was given new graphic design and theme music by Frank Gehry, based on the long-standing 10-note logo originated by Dick Marks and previously used by Channel 2 on and off since the 1970s. The August 3rd, 2011 edition of the CBS Evening News with Scott Pelley was produced live from the Dumpy Newsroom, being the first CBS national newscast to originate from the Studio City facility. Let me get that off of there. On January 14th, 2012, KCBS and sister station KCAL9 began broadcasting morning newscasts on weekends that compete with those offered by channels 7, 4, and 5. The station was one of the last major market CBS-owned affiliates to schedule local news broadcasts on Saturday and Sunday mornings. In June 2019, CBS News launched a Los Angeles version of its CBSN online news network featuring exclusive programming to the channel, as well as simulcasts of odd Channel 2 and Channel 9 newscasts and selected CBS News programs. This is the second cable/streaming news channel targeted to the Los Angeles area currently in operation, besides the cable-based Spectrum News 1, Southern California, which was launched in November 2018. The Los Angeles television market's first cable news network was the Orange County News Channel, which was in operation from 1990 to 2001, although it was only available and specifically targeted to cable viewers within that county. In OCN's final years, KCBS was a news partner with the channel, with OCN reporters and stories featured on various KCBS newscasts, including a headline segment on Channel 2's morning broadcast newscasts. 2022 to the present. On July 13, 2022, it was announced that KCAL9 would introduce a new 7-hour morning newscast to replace that of KCBS, running from 4 to 11 a.m. As a replacement, KCBS planned to air the live East Coast broadcast of CBS Mornings from 4 to 6 a.m. Pacific Time, followed by a simulcast of the 6 a.m. hour of the KCAL Morning Show, and then the West Coast edition of CBS Mornings from 7 to 9. CBS News and Stations President Wendy McMahon referred to the changes as an audience growth opportunity, citing that KCAL's early morning lineup had largely consisted of paid programming, and that the changes would provide additional options for both local and national news to viewers. Concurrently, it was also revealed that CBS planned to promote KCAL as the main local news outlet of its Los Angeles duopoly. When KCAL News Mornings premiered on January 5th, 2023, news programming across both stations was renamed KCAL News, as part of a rebranding at all CBS-owned stations to align themselves with the network's current corporate identity. Okay, notable on-air staff presently at Channel 2 includes meteorologist Paul Dano, anchor Pat Harvey, and sports anchor and director Jim Hill. And former notable on-air staff at Channel 2 includes Ross Becker, reporter and anchor from 1980 to 1990. Joseph Benty, anchor in the late 70s. Jim Castillo, weather anchor, 2001 to 2002. Bob Chandler, host of Two on the Town from 1984 to 1987. Sophia Choi, Connie Chung, an anchor and reporter from 1976 to 1983. Joel Conable, Tony Cox, anchor and reporter from 1982 to 1985. Ann Curry, reporter from 1984 to 1990. Peter Doubt, anchor and reporter, 2016 to 2019. Laura Diaz, anchor and reporter from 2002 to 2011. Linda Douglas, political reporter, 1983 to 1985. Jerry Dunphy, anchor, 1960 to 1975 and 1995 to 1996. Steve Edwards, weather forecaster, host of Two on the Town, and an entertainment reporter from 1978 to 1981. Rich Fields, weather anchor, 2010 to 2016. Roy Firestone, sports anchor and reporter from 1977 to 1985. Jim Forbes, investigative reporter, 1985 to 1989. Dr. George Fishback, special correspondent, 1994 to 1987. Gary Franklin, entertainment reporter, 1981 to 1986. David Garcia, anchor and reporter, 1983 to 1986. Carlos Granda, now at KCBS-TV Channel 7. Harold Green, anchor, 2001 to 2008. Drew Griffin, reporter and anchor, 1994 to 2004. Joel Grover, reporter, 1996 to 2002. John Hart, reporter, 1962 to 1965. Steve Hartman, feature reporter, 1994 to 1998. Then there's Steve Hartman, who was a sportscaster for the station from 1998 to 2010. So they employed two Steve Hartmans. Sandra Sandy Hill, 1974 to 1976 and 1982 to 1986. Louisa Hodge, meteorologist and general assignment reporter. Lester Holt, reporter, 1982 to 1983. David Horowitz, consumer reporter, 1993 to 1998. Huell Hauser, features reporter, 1981 to 1987. Jackie Johnson, meteorologist. Ken Jones, anchor and reporter, 1976 to 1982. Lisa Joyner, entertainment reporter, 2002 to 2006. David Kay, station announcer, 2003 to 2010. Bill Keene, weather anchor, Keene at Noon host, and traffic reporter, 1954 to 1972, and 1987 to 1993. Steve Kometko, reporter and entertainment critic, 1980 to 1992. Jim Lampley, news and sports anchor, 1987 to 1992. Kelly Lang, host of Women to Women, 1999 to 2001. Harvey Levin, legal analyst, 1987 to 1997. Dorothy Lucy, anchor and reporter, 1987 to 1992. Paul Majors, anchor, 2004 to 2017. Dave Malkoff, reporter, 2007 to 2010. Barrio Machado, consumer affairs reporter and host of Noontime from 1969 to 1977. Rory Marcus, sports anchor, 1990 to 1996. Jess Marlowe, anchor, 1980 to 1986. Ann Martin, 1994 to 2008. Ben McCann and Butch McCann, both reporters in the year 2000 for KCBS. Gary Miller, sports anchor, 2005 to 2017. Dan Miller, anchor and reporter, 1986 to 1987. Jim Moret, entertainment reporter and anchor, 1984 to 1987. Byron Miranda, weeknight weather anchor, 2002 to 2005. DeMarco Morgan, anchor. Johnny Mountain, I should say, weeknight weather anchor from 2005 to 2010. Terry Murphy, anchor and reporter, 1980 to 1984 and 1987 to 1989. Brent Musburger, anchor, sportscaster, and reporter, 1978 to 1981. Pat O'Brien, anchor and reporter, 1978 to 1981 and 1986 to 1987. Kevin O'Connell, weather anchor. Keith Olbermann, sports anchor, 1988 to 1991. Warren Olney, anchor and reporter, 1969 to 1975 and 1986 to 1989. Mike Parker, investigative reporter, 1977 to 1980. Kyra Phillips, reporter, anchor, 1995 to 2000. Maury Povich, anchor, 1977 to 1978. Cleet Roberts, anchor and reporter, 1954 to 1959 and 1966 to 1973. Rob Schmidt, anchor, 2011 to 2013. John Schulbeck, anchor, 1983 to 1988. David Sheehan, entertainment reporter, 1971 to 1981 and 1994 to 2003. Kent Shockneck, anchor, 2001 to 2013. Ralph Story, anchor, features reporter, and the host of Ralph Story's Los Angeles, 1959 to 1970 and 1978 to 1985. Bill Stout, anchor, reporter, and commentator for Perspective, 1954 to 1960, 1972 to 1989. Gail Stratton, sports anchor, 1954 to 1966, and 1969 to 1990. Sharon Tay, anchor, 2007 to 2020. Ruth Ashton Taylor, anchor and reporter, 1951 to 1958, and 1962 to 1989. Tritia Toyota, anchor, 1985 to 1999. Michael Tuck, anchor and commentator for Perspective, 1990 to 1999. Bob Turr, helicopter pilot and reporter. Charlie Van Dyke, station announcer, 1987 to 1993. Sylvia Vargas, anchor, 2010 to 2013. Bree Walker, anchor and reporter, 1988 to 1994. Colleen Williams, anchor and reporter, 1983 to 1986. Alex Witt, 1990 to 1992. And Paula Zahn, anchor and reporter, 1986 to 1987. Technical information, subchannels. KCBS-TV's signal is multiplexed. Alright, so you have 4 digital subchannels on KCBS, and they have an additional station or an additional subchannel broadcast by KCBS on behalf of another station. Alright, so on channel 2.1 at 1080i resolution HD is CBS. On 2.2 at 480i HD is Start TV. 2.3 also at 480i HD is Dabble. 2.4 at 480i resolution HD is Fave TV. And then the station that's being broadcast by KCBS on behalf of another is channel 13.2, broadcasting at 480i HD, and that is Buzzer, which is normally seen on KCOP's second digital subchannel. And all subchannels broadcast with a 16:9 aspect ratio. Alright. KCBS-TV operates 5 translators, including K22NA Channel 2 in Inyokern, K25QB Channel 25 in Lucerne Valley, K30GU Channel 30 in Morongo Valley, K10IX Channel 10 in Newberry Springs, and K15FC Channel 15 in 29 Palms. And that is the history of KCBS-TV. As this series continues looking at the TV station histories of LA stations, our next video coming up here, episode 16, we'll talk about one of Channel 2's biggest rivals, and that's KNBC, which is the West Coast flagship of NBC. We'll be talking about that station in episode 16. In the meantime, like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. Ring the bell and get notified every time I go live. Big shout out to Caesar, as I call him, King Caesar, and the homie Joey. Thanks for dropping by on the stream today. And for now, it's Big Al signing off. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you back here next time for episode 16 of TV Station History. Peace out.